too.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming on out to Out on a Limb with Gabby Allen today. Today, I'm so excited to bring you Desiree Holt. Seriously, this is going to be so much fun. We've been talking before we started recording. You're going to love it. Plug in, hold on. Let's go for a ride. So, Desiree, I only ever do one prepared question, and that is, what is it that you do and how do you do it?
Okay. Well, to get to that point, I have to tell you how I got started. I always wanted to write. I mean, my whole life, I wanted to be a writer. I've written things, magazine pieces, I worked for newspapers, but I really wanted to write fiction, romance.
Okay.
I thought romance.
Okay.
It wasn't until after I retired that I actually got to start writing. And the whole year before I retired, everybody on my staff knew I was going to write a book, and everybody was giving me suggestions. When I retired, I had a folder this thick with everybody's suggestions. I finally sat down to write. After 3 months, I only had 3 chapters, and my husband was alive then, and I looked at him and I said, I don't think I'm doing this right. So you know how people always say there are things that give them direction in what they're doing? This was before digital books, and so I subscribed to the Doubleday Book Club, and one of my books that I got was Cry No More by Linda Howard, which I recommend to everybody.
Yes.
I stayed up till 4 a.m. reading it, and I thought, this is what I want to write, and I'm going to write a book where I create my own version of Diaz, our hero.
Okay.
So I actually sat down and wrote an 85,000 word book in a week. I can't do it anymore. But
wow.
I sat at that computer. My husband kept bringing me coffee and sandwiches, and he said, go to it, honey.
I love it. That's awesome.
Of course, it took me forever to sell it. And then, history, digital was just coming into being, and I signed with a small press, and I had 3 books out and I went bankrupt.
That's
But
horrible.
Was just coming into existence, and I met Rhonda Penders, who said, send me your books. So that was really the start of my career. I wasn't writing erotic then. I was just writing what I thought was really good romantic suspense, and apparently readers did too.
That's
but
awesome.
Subsequently, I got into the erotic thing because in my writers group, I was living in San Antonio then, they had just come back from a convention, and they said, and that's when Alora's Cave was like the queen of everything.
Yes.
And I said, they're having an open submission call for short novellas.
Yes.
If you ever want to get into it, this is the time.
Right.
Talked to my husband about it. I said, I've just never written anything that explicit. He said, go and buy some books. If you feel comfortable with it, do it. Actually, he said, it's not as if you don't know what you're writing about. I said, thanks a lot.
That's wonderful. That is an on par, absolutely awesome point. I love that.
Absolutely.
So much.
And I always remember that.
Of course.
So about 3 of their books, I said, okay, I'm going to try this. And I wrote a 15,000 word novella. They were Valentine themed. So this was called Cupid's Shaft. And I sent it in, and holy God, they bought it. I mean, I must have sat and read that email for 2 hours because I couldn't believe it. Not only did they buy it, they asked me to write one for their June themed novellas they were putting out. And that's what started me with Alora's Cave. They liked everything I wrote, and apparently the readers did, because they were selling like crazy.
Yeah.
So I wrote novellas, I wrote full length, I
Yeah.
wrote a lot of other stuff. In the meanwhile, since it was selling so well, I took the series that I had started with Wild Rose Press, and I talked to Rhonda, and I said, if you would give me another editor, I would like to write these erotic.
Okay.
She said, sure. So I did. And
I love Rhonda.
Guardian Security got to be as hot as it is,
Yes.
and still keeps selling.
Yes.
So I've gone through a lot of changes,
Yeah.
as we go along. And I've tried writing in different environments with other publishers, but every publisher has their own, I call it an environment. I don't know what else to call it. The
no.
way they like their books written and things like that.
Yes.
And
yes.
you have to be smart enough to know that not every publisher is for you.
Yes. Thank you. That
Yes.
they you yeah. That yes.
They have their concepts.
Yes.
They have the styles that they want.
Yes.
They have things that they want. And it isn't always a fit. And if it isn't, big deal.
Yeah.
So you do something else. I actually have been fortunate enough to have had great success with self-publishing.
Good.
I can't even remember now how I got started. It was with 2 or 3 other authors that were taking the chance.
Okay.
And then, and I think I got more into it when Amazon had the Kindle worlds.
Yes.
Because I wrote a book. Carly Phillips invited me to write in her Kindle world.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was in the first launch they did. And I was really excited because the book went to #1 on Amazon. It was,
wow.
I enjoyed it, yes.
That's awesome.
So I think that's where I discovered that if I self-publish, I have more control over my books. But you have to have an audience. Writing a book is not enough. You have to have an audience.
Yes.
And you have to tell your audience that you're writing what they want.
Yes.
And that's something else I had to learn. Just because you think a book is wonderful doesn't mean that a lot of other people will. Because I have books that I've written along the way that I thought, oh my God, this is going to knock everybody's socks off, and it didn't even take their shoes off. I mean, they just I've had readers write to me and saying, "Are you struggling with an illness?" So,
is there something we can do to help you, Desiree, to get back to where we like you?
Exactly. So,
oh my God, that's hysterical.
So it's in and out. I'm fortunate that I have really good friends who are also authors. Good. And we have banded together to do different things.
Yes.
I wrote in Elle James's world when she was in Kindle World. I've known Elle James since the day that I joined San Antonio Romance Authors. She was living in San Antonio then, and so was I. And she was the one who encouraged me to submit to Alora's Cave. So
that's where I found you. I found you at Alora's Cave. And
really?
And oh yeah. oh yeah. I mean, I really don't want to have like a total fangirl moment on you, but I'm going to anyway. So I used to want desperately to write for Alora's Cave. And you were actually the very first one. Cupid's Shaft was the very first Alora's Cave I ever read. And I was like, oh my gosh, please let me be able to do this. Now I didn't end up ever sending them something that they were like, please, yes. But it really showed me what I did well by reading your stuff, trying to figure out whether or not, because I had a couple of different authors that I was like, okay, next one's out. Let's find out, how do things grow? How do I want things to do? How do I want them to roll? And I learned a lot by reading your stuff and thinking, okay, I don't know, I love reading this, but I'm really struggling to write it. Right. And so, with your husband saying, get 3, see if you like them, and then see if you're comfortable writing them. I liked them, but I loved them. My computer was filled with Alora's Cave books, but I just never could hit that sensuality level, I guess, that I loved reading, but I was not always comfortable writing that stuff. I don't think I was as good at it. I liked closing the door, and I was really good at that, but like in the midst of it. And so I think that, like you were saying, you you figure out what it is that you're doing. We were talking before we got on camera, and it's one of those things where, you know, when you do something well, you should roll with that. And, you know,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I never expected that that would be my niche, you know,
yeah,
but it
I
just,
understand, but it is.
I'll tell you something interesting. I did a survey in my reader group. I have a wonderful, wonderful reader group.
Oh, that's
Desiree
awesome.
darlings are just
Oh,
that's I did a
such a
survey.
cute name.
My sales were up and down. And I said, I'm taking a survey, 3 choices. Do you like me to write explicit, semi-explicit, or mild? I got 167 answers and they all checked explicit. So I thought, well, and you know, and then they posted titles of different books that they had read. It said, write more like this again, or write more like that.
Yeah.
So this book I'm finishing now, I mean, they have sex that's off the charts. And I didn't spend a lot of time trying to make it literary fiction.
Right.
I just wrote from the emotion.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think it's turned out to be a really good book. I'm excited about it.
Good. Well, and I think that's one of the things, you know, sometimes for me, I'm thinking, you know, I write genre fiction. Would I be able to write something more mainstream? What if I wrote something more literary? What if I did this or that? But I think, you know, especially if you have Desiree's darlings, they love your books and you for what they have read over the years, and they love what it is, because when they open a Desiree Holt book, they know exactly what they're getting. Right. And they will look for you in the moments that they need what they get from you. They don't want to open that book and be like, what? Not that this is a bad book, but what was that? Because I really needed this and you gave me this.
And that's happened. And so it was really a good lesson to me.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I've been with other publishers. I had a good run with Kensington, but my style doesn't fit their house. And they really wanted it to. And they worked with me. And I finally said to Martin Dero, who's the senior editor, Martin, I love you to death and you've been very good to me, but I can't write for you because it isn't what you really want.
Yeah.
And I've had that with a couple of other publishers.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I like self-publishing. Yeah. Because I'm not hampered by anything. And thank God, after 16 years in the business, I have built up a following and I have built up a structure.
Yes.
And I have the most wonderful virtual assistant in the entire world.
That's awesome.
Connor.
I'm sorry, her name is what?
Maria Connor.
Oh, very nice.
And how I got to her is a funny story. I had somebody doing my PR work and doing a semi-mediocre job on it. But it was right at the start of the Kindle worlds. And so somehow she got to put together the Kindle worlds for Roxanne St. Clair. And she asked me if I would write in it. And I said, yes. I actually wrote twice in the world.
Nice.
And I had 4 years ago, I was at RWA convention and Rocky was there. And she came up to me and she said, I fired this woman. And you should too. She said, and because I like you and I like your work, I'm going to tell you something. I have the best virtual assistant in the world, and I'm going to hook you up with her. And that's how I got Maria, and she is pure gold. We are both going to the NINC conference next week.
Oh, wonderful.
And we're going early, and we've blocked out a whole afternoon that we can sit down and block out, because I have my schedule for the next 18 months.
Oh.
That we can block out my promotions for the next 18 months.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
It's just, she is so incredible. I mean, I feel so honored and fortunate. Yeah. Because she decided that she had about a year ago that she was too busy.
Oh,
And so she cut her client list down, but she kept me. I'm so excited.
But you're like, please, please do not cut me. Okay. Like,
Yes,
do you like
exactly.
cookies? Can I send you a dress? Like, whatever you need, let me
Yes,
know.
yes. So,
That's awesome.
and so I kind of found after all this time what my real niche is.
Yeah.
My readers like me to write about military heroes, military
Okay.
first, police second. I write a lot about SEALs because I have it to meet a person who has become a really good friend. His name is Jack Carr. He was a decorated SEAL for 20 years. He's now a New York Times bestselling author.
Wow.
This is I'm going to squeeze this in there because it shows you that you never know in life
I
what's
love
going to.
any story you want to share. Bring it on out.
When I lived in San Antonio, I was very good friends with the customer relations manager for the Barnes and Noble that I shopped at.
Yes.
And she really, really, really wanted to get Vince Flynn to come to do a book signing. And that's when he was his early years of being a bestseller. And she kept trying to get through Doubleday, not Doubleday, to Simon and Schuster and everything. And she couldn't get anywhere. Well, nobody ever tells me no. I mean, I will push to the end. So somehow I hooked up with David Brown, who is the Deputy Director of Publicity for Simon and Schuster. We have since become very good friends.
Awesome.
And I worked it out with him to have Vince Flynn come to.
Nice.
And that was so exciting. But through him, I've met others, and that's how I met Jack Carr.
Yeah.
And Jack Carr came to Tampa, St. Petersburg, 3 years ago to a convention. And David was here, and he called up and said, Jack would like to meet you. Can your son bring you over to have lunch? And I said, sure. So we spent the afternoon with him. Nicest guy in the world that you ever want to meet. And still, with all of his celebrity, he is still the same nice guy. And he writes incredible books. And as busy as he is with everything that he's doing, I can send him questions to get information, and he always answers me.
Oh.
So I write about SEALs, and I have this book, Heroes Rising, the series that I dedicated to him.
Aww.
Second after that are other military, Marines come in. And then officers of the law, the Blue Line. Yes. And my readers seem to like it the most, and I think it's because my heroes are modeled after real people.
Oh, that's wonderful.
All of
that
my
is
heroes
wonderful.
are modeled after real people.
Okay. The guys and the girls, or just the guys?
Just the guys.
Okay.
Sometimes the girls, because my stories are basically character driven.
Yes.
I see the people and they inspire me.
Yes.
What if they did so and so? And that's how all my plots end up coming together. Because I start with the people and they tell me what they want to do.
Yeah.
So it's exciting for me to meet people like Jack Carr, who are willing to help me like this. I mean, let me give you another example of how nice people are. My son, Stephen, has a very good friend who is an intellectual property attorney.
Okay.
Dave was going down the tubes, and I was fighting to get my stuff back. Todd stepped in, and in 24 hours, he had all my rights back, and he had the books taken down from all the platforms.
Wow.
Yes, he is one of the top 100 in the country, and he happens to be a very close friend to my son.
That's awesome.
So I'm writing this book now where the heroine's brother was wrongfully convicted of murder.
Okay.
And we're in the process where an appeal has to be filed, and I had some questions. So I called Todd and I said, this is just a quick question. If you're busy, tell me. And I told him what I needed. He said, I'll tell you what I know. He said, but the person that you really want to talk to is my dad, because he's a retired judge in criminal courts. I said, well, if he's not busy, I'll send him an email.
Right.
15 minutes later, my phone rang and he said, Hi, this is Wayne Timmerman, and my son says that you have a couple questions. And I thought, oh my God, I am just so blessed with all these people in my life, you know?
Yeah,
So he answered all my questions. He gave me all the information I needed.
I love it.
And,
I
and
love
that's,
it.
that happens with a lot of stuff. But anyway, I digress. That's how so many of my heroes are based on people. When I started the Phoenix Agency series for Laura's Hay,
Yes.
we were living in Texas, and my husband was a gun expert, and he loved to go to the shooting range.
Okay.
So we both got our concealed carry licenses,
Okay.
and they renew it on your birthday. So I renewed on a different day than his, and my instructor in the class was former Special Forces, an Army Ranger, and then Special Forces. And I said, I mean, I'll ask everybody anything. I said, can I ask you some questions about Delta Force?
Right.
He was in a Delta Force team. He said, sure. And he was kind enough to spend an entire day in his office with me, answering questions and doing all of that stuff.
That's
so
awesome.
That's what inspired the first Phoenix Agency book. And so, of course, I stuck with the military theme. So if I go back and I look at everything now and everything that I've written and the books that have sold well and the books that have sold okay,
right,
from the beginning, it's been the ones with military theme or law enforcement theme that have resonated with my readers. That's what I'm going to stick with.
Why not? I mean, I don't know. To me, as a reader, I love having some idea of what, even if you go back and forth between cops, military, special forces, and you're moving back and forth, I feel like if you know what the core story is going to be. I had a conversation with another author, and she said, my core story is always this. It just depends on how I'm going to wrap it.
Yes.
And that sounds like what you're talking about, is that your core story is always character driven. It has to do with falling in love. Yes. And yet it just depends on how you're going to wrap it. Are you making it Navy SEAL? Are you making it a cop? Are you making it different special forces? Is there going to be romantic suspense? What are you doing in here?
Right.
But your readers always know when they open your book that they get your core story, therefore they're willing to follow you along to find out what kind of wrapping you're using.
Absolutely. And that's what they were telling me in my readers group. And the thing is, my heroes are always protectors, but usually they have some flaw. They're injured and they can't deal with it. They have a personal problem, whatever it is, because I don't like perfect heroes. I don't like I just don't like it.
No.
And the thing is, even though they are protecting or rescuing the heroine, it doesn't mean that she is weak or helpless.
Yes.
My heroines are all gutsy.
Yeah.
They find a way to deal with life. In protecting Amy, which is part of the Protector series in Susan Stoker's world.
Yes.
She had seen her entire family murdered by her stepbrother, and it left its emotional mark on her.
Of course.
Agoraphobia, and relocated across the country. And now she's in this big house that she bought that has all kinds of security. And but she doesn't just sit there and do nothing. She designs video games. And that's how she meets the guy that puts her in touch with the hero.
Yes.
And all of that. So, I mean, they don't just sit there and wring their hands.
Right. That's so important. So important. I'm on board for an alpha hero as long as there's something about them that makes me think that they would make a good partner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I need that to continue reading the story. I've read stories with alpha heroes and I'm like, When are we going to get to the part where I think that he is ever going to be good in the long run? Like, I get that you're hurt. I get that you've got stuff to go through. But if you're going to be mean to the heroine for like 90% of the book, I'm having a hard time that in the last 10%, you finally were like, oh, I love you. That makes everything different. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about, I don't know about that.
I will tell you a snippet of a little scene in Protecting Amy that
Okay.
my beta reader said she thinks is one of the best scenes I've ever written. And she said it made Quinn, the hero, one of her 10 favorite book boyfriends.
Oh.
Amy, of course, has isolated herself, and so she hasn't had any relationships with anybody. And now there's somebody after her, and so Quinn has been sent to protect her, and she's having a nightmare one night. So she gets up, has a drink of water, lies down, and goes to sleep and has this really hot dream about Quinn.
As you do.
It happens, and I don't want to keep that all away. So
right.
What wakes her up.
Okay.
So he comes into the room to see what's happening. He checks everything and it's fine. There's nobody in there. He said, come on, lie down. He said, I'll stay here with you until you fall asleep. So he lies down next to her in bed and on top of the covers. And he says, so tell me what's going on. And instead of them having sex, which I didn't think would really be appropriate at that time, she tells her about this dream that she's had about him.
Nicely done, Amy. Nicely done.
So, because I wanted to get the sex in there, but you
yes.
keep going from like, oh my God, somebody's going to kill me to take off my clothes, you know?
Right. That I sometimes, it was funny. I had at one point I had thought about writing romantic suspense, and there were some that I was reading that it's like they're running from each, from people who are trying to kill them, and they run past a closet and they're like, let's go screw in there real quick. And I'm like,
exactly.
What are you doing? I mean,
exactly.
I get that you want to get the sex in there, but like you said, there are certain points that are really not appropriate to.
No,
I understand you can be hot and heavy for this guy, but you're old enough to maybe curb your enthusiasm just for a little bit until you're kind of safe.
It's just, I mean, I probably use this maybe more than I should, but nobody has objected to it. But I have a lot of dream sequences because my heroines are trapped in situations. Here's the guy that's going to save her.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all of this, she wants to take off her clothes and jump in bed with him.
Right.
But they haven't even gotten past what's for breakfast, So I have erotic dreams. Yeah. And I really enjoy writing them.
Yeah.
Because it also then breaks down the barriers in the relationship. Yeah. Because she gets up and she looks at him and he has dreams about her. Right. I mean, I have fun writing them. By the way, let me introduce you to someone. This is my co-author.
Oh. Beth. Oh, beautiful.
She sits on my desk every day.
Oh, I love it.
That's what I write.
Gives you ideas, tells you that you're doing a good job.
Yes. Says, no, Mom, not that way.
I don't think that's appropriate here, Mom. If you could move that up a little bit.
Exactly.
It's so funny. I have 2 dogs and they'll sit behind me and they're just like, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm trying to do something here. And then I'll look at it and I'm like, all right, well, maybe that needs a little bit. Maybe I need to think about that a little bit more.
Well, I got 3 kittens from the animal shelter 17 years ago.
Wow.
2 of them were litter mates, and Best was a different litter.
Okay.
Grace, who was my alpha cat, crossed the Rainbow Bridge a year ago, June.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She developed some kind of cancer in her blood, and
it's heartbreaking.
But I still have Bast, and I still have Blanca, who was a big fluffy white cat.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they inspire me. And they get up in bed with me at night and they watch television with me.
There
And,
you go.
yep.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Except Bass keeps telling me she wants her name on the books as co-author.
You can put her in the dedication. Tell her
Yes.
that you'll compromise. You can put her in the dedication, and that's about as far as you're going to go. You do appreciate the help, but there's only room for your name on the cover.
Right.
I love it. I love it. When you're writing, and I just was thinking about this when we were talking about your dream sequences, do you tend to write linearly? So do you start at the beginning as a character driven story? Do you start at the beginning and write all the way through, or do you write scenes as they come to you? Okay, so you are linear.
I'm very linear.
I don't know how people do it who
you know
aren't
what that
linear.
comes from? I worked for years as a stringer for weekly newspapers, and so you learn right in that process.
Yeah, you have to do it that way.
Yep.
That is very, very cool. And so do you do a lot of like thinking about the story ahead of time, or are you more of a like sit down and just get started?
I am really a pantser.
Okay.
And in fact, I can start out, I very often try to start out with an outline of a plot, but it changes so many times before I get to the end of it, because it just isn't working, because my characters talk to me and they say, are you kidding? I wouldn't do that. Terrible pages. So I start
all of that.
Right. And I listen to my characters. I want to tell you about a project before I forget too.
Sure.
But L. James, has the Brotherhood Protectors. Yeah. And now she has Colorado Brotherhood Protectors.
Okay.
And so she asked 5 of us authors to write a series within a series. And it's called Team Trojan. And they were all Delta Force. No, they were all Green Berets. Okay. And mission went wrong. And their commanding officer was the one that screwed it up. And he put the blame on them. And he said, you shut up about this. You can either resign from the military, or we will discharge you dishonorably, because he had to do it. So they're out of the military and they want to stick together and they don't know what to do. Right. There's 5 of them. But from the Brotherhood Protectors in Montana, they've now opened this place in Colorado that's right near Fort Carson. And they heard about these guys, so they invite them to come and talk to them. And that's how the whole thing started. My book is the first in the series, and it sets the scene. It's called books are called Team Trojan, and they are now up for pre-order. So everybody go and pre-order the book. You will love these books. You will just love them, because there are flawed heroes, which I love. Of course. And there are strong women with their own weaknesses. Yes. And it's just, I'm so excited to be part of this.
Oh, I bet. That sounds wonderful. I can't wait. I can't wait. I will definitely go out and pre-order. And I believe I have all of your links that I'm going to put in the description box. But if you have a specific one for the pre-order that you want me to put at the top, just wing it over to me and I'll make sure it gets in there. So, okay. Yeah, I you and I have pretty much, it sounds like, been in the business about the same length of time.
Yes.
And it can be really hard to stay on top of things after this many years. I've seen a lot of authors who and then you don't see them anymore. I've seen a lot of authors who soar for a couple of years and then that's it. And so I am super impressed by the way that you have managed your career throughout the years and done the things that make sense for you and make sense for your readers. One of the things that I'm finding with self-publishing for myself, it kind of in a similar vein, is so I write for Kensington also. I write for the Wild Rose Press and I write for Kensington. And there are certain things that I'm like, oh, I'd love to do this at Kensington. There's no way they're going to take that. but I want to write it and people want to read it. And so I love that you found that balance between doing some things on your own and doing some things with the Wild Rose Press, and figuring out, like you said, I'm really going to have to think about the environment thing. It's been floating around the edge of my mind for a while, but you really nailed like a phrase that makes me say, oh yeah, we need to think about that, because there are certain things that you're like, I'd love to do that, but I don't fit. I had been trying.
And that was my situation with Kensington. I loved my editor. I loved Martin Bureau. And I know he would have liked me to continue writing. But I said, Martin, I am too edgy. And that was the best way I could describe it to you. I am too edgy. My writing is too edgy. And I can only get myself edited so much.
Right. And you still want to write books that you love. You know, I mean, so there's what, it's not like, and I go back and forth. There are certain people who you give them something and they're like, yep, I can write that. Yep, I can write that. And they're two completely different things. And that's awesome. I am super happy that you can do that. I, however, am not a huge fan of writing the story I love and then editing it into something that's acceptable.
Absolutely.
That's very hard for me, because I feel like this one is everything that I am, and this one is what you want me to be. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that that's not quite where I want to be.
It is what it is.
Author. Yeah.
That's why I did the survey in my reader group.
Yeah.
And it was a real wake-up call to me.
Absolutely.
This is what they want you to write. And they want you to keep writing that. And they don't want you to write anything else. And you had a good time writing it. And you still have a good time writing it. So shut up and write it.
Exactly. And I think sometimes that as long as you're still excited to write it, don't stop. You know, I mean, I think we feel like we need to change gears, or that this is what's popular in publishing right now, or people want this more, but there are still people who love everything that you're putting out. So why would you change that, except that you think maybe you should? And there's nothing wrong with trying something new, but I think if it doesn't bring you the joy that writing what you currently write brings, then you tried. That's awesome. That doesn't mean it has to be forever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's right where I am.
Yeah, exactly. We are almost at 40 minutes. I told you this was going to go fast.
Yes. Oh my God.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for being available to do this. I have been very much looking forward to it. When your name popped into my email box, I was like, oh no, you're going to have to be professional. So I really do appreciate you being here. Can you please tell us where to find you and where to get in, or, you know, find stuff about you? That would be awesome.
Yes. My reader group is on Facebook. It's called Desiree's Darlings.
Okay.
Just find it, click the thing to join, and we approve it.
Okay.
I have my regular Desiree Holt page on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. My website is DesireeHolt.com.
Okay.
And my blog is Desiree'sPlace.net, and I have all kinds of stuff on there.
Okay.
And on my website, as a matter of fact, is a place right on the landing page where you can sign up for my newsletter. Okay. And I run special things in my newsletter just for people who have signed up for it. So
awesome.
And I'm available always. I love people to write to me. I always answer them.
Okay. Wonderful. And when your next book comes out, if you want to come back on, I would love to talk with you again. This has been a blast. I think a lot of people really enjoy hearing different things that are going on and how different things work. And I know that there are some people who are like, you know, well, I haven't arrived unless I'm at a specific publisher, but I hope that maybe from this conversation, they'll take You need to find the environment that's right for you, and then you need to make that work for you.
That's right.
And that is an amazing thing. I think it allows people to realize that everybody needs something a little different. You need to find what works for you, and then just run and run fast. And
I
that's
have
awesome.
2 things coming up. I have 3 actually, but 2
Okay.
that are really special. I'm in this series called Shadow Seals with a group of other authors. We did 2 other seal series, and some of the books are out already. Mine's coming out in January.
Okay.
And next year, I am launching a new series in Susan Stoker's world.
Okay.
And we might be doing something together in it. My story is about 5 former SEALs, friends, who grew up in a small town together. They leave the service together and they come home to make new lives again for themselves in a small town. And they discover that the entire police department is crooked. And the town is because of it. And it's how they're able to take control and change all of this and change the face of everything. So
wow.
I'm really, really excited about that series.
Oh, I bet. That sounds amazing. I will definitely have to click over and get that one too. You're going to make my TBR pile too high. That's okay. I'm not complaining. I am not complaining at all. I do put out an offer at the end of every podcast. If you guys have any questions that Desiree or I can help you with, drop them in the comments box. I'll make sure that she sees them.
Yes.
Because if you want to learn, we want to try to help you learn also. And this, again, this has been so much fun. Thank you, Desiree, so much for being available.
I loved it. Thank you.
Good.
For asking me.
Good. Yes, totally my pleasure. I am excited for your books. I'm excited for your career, and hopefully we'll get to do this again soon when your next series comes out.
Absolutely.
And we'll chat again. Wonderful. All right, so that's going to close it out for today. Thank you so much for coming over to Out on a Limb with Gabby Allen. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, whenever it is that you're listening to this.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.